Revert back to introduction of guests. Member from Fredericton Silverwood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, Hurricane Arthur left many parts of this province and tens of thousands of residents here in the Fredericton region without the necessities of life. And in this time of crisis, it was reconfirmed that around this province, the local volunteer fire hall is the nerve center of the community. Across New Brunswick, firefighters and many other volunteers step forward to provide food, water, and other key life support to those in need. And one such team of volunteer firefighters joins us here today. The Kingsclear First Nation Fire Department was very engaged in providing emergency support in the critical week that followed Hurricane Arthur. This dedicated group worked hard around the clock to care for their community, often at high personal cost. I'd like to introduce Kingsclear First Nation Fire Department Chief Douglas Paul. I'd ask him to stand, and he's also joined here today by his wife Suzanne, and I'd like to ask her to stand as well. Now, Fire Chief Paul is the youngest fire chief in Atlantic Canada. He took over the fire department when he was 34 and became the official chief when he was 35. And he's built on the sound foundation of the Kingsclear First Nation Volunteer Fire Department. And he's worked hard to instill a very keen sense of professionalism and a dedicated work ethic in his team. So I'd like all members of the Legislature to join me in welcoming him. We're also joined by his fire chief, Claudette Sabattis, and I'd ask Claudette to stand. Claudette is a long-serving member, I believe over 20 years with the fire department. She's the captain. She's certainly a leader on the team and is the key to the corporate memory of the institution. She does a little of everything, and she was the first female firefighter, I understand, and the only one until 2008. So welcome, Claudette. Now in 2008, along came Tammy Sabattis, and I asked Tammy to stand. Tammy's been serving now for about 6 years as one of the female firefighters on the team, and Tammy's big passion is interior fire attack, which you'd never know by looking at her, but she's quite keen on that, so welcome, Tammy. We're also joined by Brian Sabattis Jr. Brian's been on the fire team for about 3 or 4 years, and he's one of the hardest working volunteer firefighters they have. He's always on the scene, and he's responsible for operating the truck. So welcome, Brian. We're also joined by Nick Robinson. Nick's been on the team for about 2 years, is responsible for the radio communications, and he's now the safety officer, and he's studying to be a paramedic. So welcome, Nick. As well, we have Mark Pasqualetto. Matt. Matt, I always want to call you Mark. I'm sorry, it's Matt. Matt has been on the team for 2 years now. He's also a search manager for the York Sunbury Search and Rescue, and as you know, many of these people have different volunteer activities. They're not just firefighters, they're often engaged in a lot of volunteer activities, and so Matt is certainly a search and rescue person as well. And he's very knowledgeable on knots and rope work. And so he's going to be in charge of the team's high and low angle rescue. So welcome, Matt. Good to see you. We're also joined today by Joe Sabattis, and I'd asked Joe to stand. Now, Joe is a member of the fire department from a long time back. He's done 30 years of service, over 30 years of service as a volunteer firefighter. Originally with the Kingsclear First Nation, and he's now working with the Keswick Valley Fire Department. He's also the EMO coordinator at the Kingsclear First Nation, and he's taught just about everybody here and many people in the community about the importance of emergency management, and he continues to carry that torch. He's certainly a leader in the community in many ways, and he was recognized for this by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II with the award of the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal. So please welcome Joe Sabattis. And finally, we're joined by Councillor Pat Polchis. Now, Pat is obviously a councillor at the First Nation, and he's here today representing the Chief and the Council. He's also an Emergency Measures Operations Officer, and he's very dedicated to his community, has a deep love for his community. He worked night and day during the power outage to make sure that the people of the community were taken care of. So welcome, Councillor. And nobody gets here alone. We're all supported in our efforts by our family. And so I'd also like to welcome to the Legislature Mr. Anthony Solomon, who is a family member and a cousin, and close to my heart. Mr. Solomon is also a former Marine, so he served in his own way in uniform. So welcome, Mr. Solomon. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask all members of the Legislature to join me in welcoming the Kingsclear First Nation Fire Department here to the Legislature and thank them for the hard work they do.